Morning traders, Paul here with GammaEdge. Today is Friday, the 23rd of December. Head of a long weekend, Christmas weekend. Hope you are able to spend it with friends and loved ones. Let's get started. Pause your players here, read to the bottom. If you agree, hit that play button. Overall summary for today, short term, long term are both in cash or short. We'll note that our short-term long signal failed on day one. This is something that is prone to happen with the short-term signal. We alluded to it yesterday that we could break each way, and we broke to the downside. That reversed the signal, and we're going to be waiting to see today what occurs. Within the SPX complex, plus GEX remains at 4,100, unchanged, and minus GEX remains at 3,800. That's unchanged. It's worth noting that we're below our major gamma transitions. It means we're below the zero. It means there's a bias to the downside. The JPM end of month 38.35 strike is dominating much of the conversation where we are right now. When we are at this level, or slightly above this level, dealers are net sellers, and that's because we're in the money on a short call, and as a result, we're heading towards a delta limit of -1, which means the dealers are heading towards a delta limit of +1, and all things equal, they must sell to get back flat in their hedging. If we're below it, it's the converse. We're limiting towards zero from the negative side, which means we're getting longer, the dealers are getting shorter, and the dealers become net buyers if we're below this level. And I have a slide here, the last slide in the deck, that I'd urge you to take a look at. Delta moneyness does suggest a potential release or a rally. Despite yesterday's sell-off and dip way below 3,800, we didn't think we would close below it, and sure enough, we did not. We do see the potential of some pretty serious upside moves here, and you'll see that on one of the slides. We don't think we're going to move aggressively downward here, but we are within a longer-term downtrend, and as a result, we're going to have these rallies in an overall bearish type of environment, so be aware of that. Here's the cumulative tick model. As I said, we immediately right out of the open, we headed down. As soon as we start crossing the shortest term moving averages, we take that as an exit on your longs. I was going to get in longer, but obviously with the gap down yesterday and then the downward slope, I did not do that, although I am still holding my longs and my deltas are net long. You can see we started to roll over here. We usually take that as a confirmation signal to get out. And you can see some pretty strong dealer adjustments here that occurred throughout the day. And then we rallied, right? Starting at about 130, you can see that we moved up. Although the CT moved up, it was not overly strong. Certainly not as strong as the downward here. So we're not convinced that we're going to have a rip-roaring, face-ripping rally to the north here. This is a little bit of a divergence, and it's a bearish divergence. So we're not convinced everybody's buying into this rally ahead of the 3-day. That said, note we could continue north, and if we cross the shortest term moving averages, we'll start progressively getting longer. But if we fail to break above these, we're actually in what's called a railroad track down pattern, and that means we should be looking to continue the downside. Now, ahead of a 3-day, might just want to sit on your hands, and unless you're delta neutral and looking to collect some theta on some short structs, I wouldn't necessarily play this if you don't want to put your attention into the machine. Long term, as I said, we remain in a long-term downtrend. We are selling the rallies if we remain the bolded white CT remains above the ribbon. Overall, levels haven't changed. Just want to highlight we are a little bit more elevated in the expected move. That's fine. PM settled complex, we've moved more back into the put-dominated deltas. That's important. Here's that 38.35. This is in the entire SPX PM settled complex, and you can see this line is very, very large relative to everything else that's around it. Don't think we're going to get anywhere near the 39.25 in the complex. We would have to see a lot of calls going in here today to create a path north from this yellow line. Just don't see it happening, especially with the pinning that's going on around this 38.35 zone. The transition zone for Gamma is extremely small. That means the zero is right in between here, and we are below that zero, and that's an important thing. The bias should be downward if we're below the zero. Taking a look at the 0 DTE, a little bit fatter today than what it's been. We have a significant amount of puts that are coming off the table today. Because we are within this transition zone and because we're going to lose a lot of that, it does open up the path to a broader move northward. But you can see just in the overall complex between the PM settled and the 0 DTE, we keep losing puts. That's great for the longer haul, but we're also losing calls, and you can see there's not a lot of call structure here in the PM complex. So we don't think we're going to push aggressively north here, but if we do, a couple hiding places to look for at end of day, this 38.70, the 38.45 zone, and then of course staying right here at this 38.20, 38.25 zone. The 1 DT looks almost the same, and that is indicative of when you have these overlapping 0 and 1 DTE structures. Very high likelihood that we'll pin at one of these zones. So just keep an eye on that. Keep for the 1, 2, and 3 that you see here as potential pinning points. We're thinking that's what's going to happen today. In fact, we still think we're going to stay right around that 38.35 zone. The combo complex, not a lot to say here. I'm not going to torture the data to tell me what I want to hear. We've had a fattening of the transition zone for the gammas. You can see that we do have a good transition right around that 38.50, 38.55 zone. And then we have these pockets of where we've got still net negative put-dominated gamma that is rearing its head here. You can see some of the overall levels here are still very significant. That 38.35 is fairly significant. But note, the 3800 is significant, and that's even larger than that 38.35. This is important when we take a look and we just isolate just the gamma through the end of the quarter or end of the year. So this is just looking through the end of next week. You can see transitions fairly tight. You can see a huge dominance at this 38.35, and we don't have the dominance below us. Now contrast that with the overall complex. So this suggests all this 3800 and below is all after the first of the year, right? So what we're really playing with is we're playing with this for next week. And this is significant, as I said when we were talking earlier. We're below it, so the dealers are a net buyer to push us upward. We get above this because this is the dominant area. They're going to be a net seller to push us down. So we have all of the conditions necessary to pin around this 38.35. It's pretty strong. You can see it, and I think that's what's happening here. Taking a look at the delta moneyness, pretty clear what's going on here. So here's that JPM 38.35 sitting here. It's out of the money because we are below it, right? So now it's limiting towards zero. In fact, all of the orange spikes limit towards zero as we march through time. Time is shown on the axis going into the back of the page here. So this is the end of the month, end of the quarter. But we also have a growth as we march through time. This 3700 spike, that's right here, will continue to grow in magnitude, but nowhere near, you can look at the magnitudes here, nowhere near what's occurring over here in the put side. So all things equal, we do think there is a setup over here. As these deltas come off either intraday or at the end of the day, the dealers have to drive towards those adjustments one way or the other. And because there is such a large amount of deltas, in the money deltas that are coming off, that will force the dealers to be buyers as they compensate for this. So we're going to see these pockets of bursts north with, the potential to pull back, but just be aware that as we go through the expiries, we're definitely seeing the potential to unleash there. So that's it for today. If you have any questions or comments, I would urge you to come into our Discord. You can get there by going to GammaEdge.us, click on the pricing tab, fill out the blanks, 14-day free trial, all the tools turned on. Very active voice group, very active chat. Would urge everyone to come in and learn what we're doing here. GammaEdge is on Twitter with an S, and then on YouTube. Thank you for all the likes that you've been tagging this with. I do appreciate that feedback. So again, if today was useful, hit that like button and let me know that I'm doing what you need. And then, of course, subscribe so you get notified next time myself, Taylor, or Michael post videos. So with that, I will bid you farewell. Hope to see you in the Discord. And if we don't talk, have a great holiday weekend, and we'll see you back here on Tuesday. Thanks.